I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd carved pumpkins and argued over board games, staring at the bank statement trembling in my hands. The numbers didn't lie, but they felt like a betrayal carved into paper. My savings $87. 432. 19. Every penny I'd scraped together over decades of teaching, scrimping, and sacrificing gone. Transferred out 2 days ago to an account I didn't recognize. The teller's voice echoed in my head. Calm, but cutting. The transaction was authorized by your children, Mrs. Harper. They said it was for your safety. My safety. The words twisted like a knife in my chest. My own children, Emily and Jacob, had drained me dry, claiming it was for my own good. I was 58, not some frail invalid teetering on the edge of dementia. I was Ellen Harper, the woman who'd raised them alone after their father walked out, who'd worked double shifts to keep them fed, who'd cheered at every soccer game and band recital. And now, this. I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to steady the rage bubbling inside me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that amplifies every creak and whisper of memory. I could still hear Emily's laughter from years ago, Jacob's clumsy guitar strums. Those kids were gone, replaced by adults I barely recognized, adults who thought they could control me, hide my own money from me, as if I were a child. I stood, the chair scraping against the linoleum, and walked to the living room. The photo on the mantel caught my eye, the three of us at Emily's high school graduation, arms around each other, smiling like nothing could break us. I wanted to smash it. Instead, I grabbed my phone and dialed Emily. No answer. Jacob's number went straight to voicemail too. They were avoiding me, probably huddled somewhere, congratulating themselves on saving me from myself. I paced, my bare feet cold against the hardwood, my mind racing. They'd always been close. Those two, whispering secrets, plotting together. But this was a conspiracy, a theft. I stopped at the window, staring into the dark backyard where they used to play. The swing set was rusted now, abandoned. Like me, I thought bitterly. I'd given them everything, every ounce of love, every spare dollar, every sleepless night worrying about their futures. And they'd repaid me by stripping me bare. The bank teller had mentioned something about a joint account oversight, a loophole they'd exploited because I'd trusted them, added them to my accounts years ago for emergencies. Emergencies. Not this. I sank onto the couch, the weight of their betrayal pressing me into the cushions. My eyes drifted to the safe in the corner, hidden behind a stack of old novels. Inside were the papers for their college fund separate accounts I'd set up when they were born, painstakingly funded with every bonus, every tax refund. Emily's was meant for her art school dreams, Jacob's for his engineering degree. They didn't know I'd kept those accounts secret, a final gift for when they needed it most. But now I saw those funds differently. They weren't gifts anymore. They were leverage. My heart pounded as the idea took shape, sharp and cold as a blade. If they thought they could take from me, I could take from them. I crossed to the safe, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. The combination clicked me mother's birthday, a number they'd never guess. The door swung open, revealing the neatly filed documents. I pulled them out, the paper crisp under my fingers. Each account held $45. 000. Enough to change their lives, just as mine had been changed. I sat back at the table, spreading the documents before me like a battle map. My children had declared war, whether they knew it or not. And I wasn't going to lose. I grabbed my laptop, logged into the investment platform, and hesitated. This was revenge, pure and simple. Was I really this person? The mother who'd taught them forgiveness. Who'd preached family above all. But then I saw the bank statement again. The zero balance staring back like a slap. They'd left me with nothing. Nothing but this. My fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating the withdrawal. By morning, their college funds would be gone, transferred to a new account only I could access. I leaned back, my breath shallow, waiting for the guilt to hit. It didn't. Not yet. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, each second a hammer against my resolve. I sat frozen, staring at the confirmation email. Transfer initiated. Funds will be available in 24 hours. My children's futures. Liquidated with a few clicks. I should have felt triumphant. But all I felt was a hollow ache. Like I'd carved out a piece of myself. I pushed the laptop away and stood, pacing the living room again. The house felt like a museum of our past. Every corner held a memory. Every scratch on the furniture a story. The coffee table where Jacob had spilled juice and cried, thinking I'd be mad. The couch where Emily had curled up after her first heartbreak, letting me stroke her hair. I stopped, my eyes burning. How had we gotten here? I thought back to last month, when Emily had come over, her face tight with worry. "Mom, you're working too hard," she'd said, stirring her tea. "You need to slow down. Maybe see a doctor." I'd laughed it off, told her I was fine. But there'd been something in her eyes. A flicker of something I couldn't place. Jacob had been quieter, avoiding my gaze, muttering about long-term plans. I should have seen it then. The seeds of their plan. They'd been talking behind my back, convincing themselves I was slipping, that I needed protecting. Protecting. The word tasted like ash. I grabbed my phone again, scrolling through old texts. Emily's last message was a breezy "love you, Mom," from a week ago. Jacob's was a reminder to fix the leaky faucet. Nothing hinted at this betrayal. I wanted to scream at them, demand answers. But the silence of their ignored calls was answer enough. They thought they'd outsmarted me. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly, letting the cold shock my system. My mind kept circling back to the college funds. Those accounts were my pride, my proof that I'd done right by them despite everything. Their father, Tom, had left when they were 6 and 8, taking his paycheck and his promises with him. I'd built those funds alone, skipping vacations, wearing the same coat for a decade. And they'd never known, because I wanted it to be a surprise, a moment of joy when they needed it most. Now, that joy was ash too. I set the glass down, my hands trembling again. What kind of mother does this? I asked myself. But then, what kind of children steal from their own mother? The question hung in the air, unanswered. I returned to the living room, the bank statement still on the table, mocking me. I picked it up, tracing the numbers with my finger. $87. $432. 19. My safety net. My retirement. My freedom. Gone because they thought they knew better. I imagined their faces when they found out about the college funds. Emily's wide eyes, Jacob's clenched jaw. Would they be angry? Hurt? Would they finally see me, not as some fragile old woman, but as someone capable of fighting back? I didn't know, but I wanted them to feel something. Anything. The way I did now. The phone buzzed, startling me. A text from Emily. "Mom, can we talk tomorrow? Busy tonight." Busy. I stared at the word, my anger flaring anew. Busy plotting. Maybe. Busy spending my money. I typed a reply, "Sure, sweetheart. Whenever you're ready," and hit send, my voice dripping with a sarcasm they couldn't hear. I wasn't going to wait for their explanations. I'd already acted. The funds were gone. And tomorrow, I'd face them. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the weight of my decision settling over me like a blanket. Sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight. Instead, I saw their faces. Younger. Softer. The kids who'd clung to me when the world felt too big. I'd protected them then. Now, I was tearing them down. The thought made my chest tighten. But I pushed it away. They'd started this. I was just finishing it. The clock ticked on, counting down to dawn, to the moment they'd learn what I'd done. Morning came too soon, the sunlight slicing through the blinds like an accusation. I hadn't slept. My body heavy with exhaustion, but my mind sharp, wired with adrenaline. The kitchen smelled of stale coffee as I brewed a fresh pot. The gurgle of the machine, the only sound in the house. I checked my Finino new messages. Emily's talk tomorrow promise felt like a taunt now. A delay tactic. I sipped the coffee, bitter and too hot, and opened my laptop. The transfer was complete, $90. 000 from their college funds now sat in a new account. Untouchable. I'd done it. No going back. My hands hovered over the keyboard, tempted to check their social media, to see if they'd posted anything hinting at their scheme. But I stopped myself. I didn't want their curated lies. I wanted their faces, their voices, when they explained why they'd gutted me. The doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. I froze, cup halfway to my lips. They wouldn't just show up, would they? I set the cup down, my heart thudding, and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Emily, her dark hair pulled back, her face pale but composed. Jacob stood behind her, hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. They'd come together. Of course they had. I opened the door, my expression a careful mask. "Morning," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Emily's eyes flicked to mine, searching, maybe surprised I wasn't already screaming. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her tone soft but firm, like she was handling a fragile thing. Jacob nodded, still avoiding my gaze. I stepped aside, letting them in. The air felt thick as they walked past, their footsteps echoing in the quiet house. We sat in the living room, me on the couch, them on the armchairs, a triangle of tension. Emily spoke first, her hands clasped tightly. "We're worried about you, Mom. You've been distracted lately, forgetting things." "We thought," I cut her off, my voice sharp. "You thought taking my money was the answer." Her eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. Jacob finally looked up, his jaw tight. "It wasn't like that," he said. "We moved it to a trust, somewhere safe. You've been talking about scams, Mom. You almost fell for that email thing last month." The email thing. A phishing scam I'd caught before it went anywhere. But they'd latched onto it, used it as proof I was slipping. I leaned forward, my voice low. "I'm not senile, Jacob. I'm not a child. That was my money, my life. You had no right." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't soften. "We were trying to protect you," she whispered. "We thought you'd thank us later." Thank them. The words hit like a slap. I stood, pacing to the mantel, my back to them. Protect me by stealing from me, by lying. My voice broke, and I hated it. I turned, facing them. "Do you know what I did last night?" They exchanged a glance, uncertain. I let the silence stretch, heavy and sharp. "I cashed out your college funds. Both of them. They're gone." Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Jacob's face hardened, his fist clenching. You what? He said, his voice low. Dangerous. I met his gaze. Unyielding. You took from me. I took from you. Fair's fair. Emily was crying now, shaking her head. Mom. No. You didn't. You wouldn't. But I had. And they knew it. The room felt like it was shrinking. The air too thick to breathe. Jacob stood, towering over me. But I didn't back down. Why? He demanded. Because you think we're the enemy. I wanted to scream yes, to let the rage pour out. But something in his eyes stopped me. Pain. Not just anger, but pain. I sat back down, my hands trembling. You tell me why, I said. Tell me why you thought you could do this to me. They didn't answer. Not right away. The silence was a wound, and we were all bleeding. The silence stretched, a taut wire ready to snap. Emily wiped her tears, her hands shaking, while Jacob stood rigid, his eyes boring into me. I wanted them to speak, to explain, to give me something to hold on to besides this burning anger. Finally, Emily broke the quiet, her voice small but steady. We didn't want to hurt you, Mom. We thought you were losing it. You've been so tired, so scattered. And then Dad called. My heart stopped. Tom. Their father. The man who'd vanished 20 years ago, leaving me to pick up the pieces. What does he have to do with this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jacob sat back down, running a hand through his hair. He reached out a few months ago, said he was worried about you, that he'd heard you were struggling. Struggling. The word stung. A lie wrapped in pity. I'd been fine, better than fine. Teaching my classes, tending my garden, living my life. But Tom's voice, that smooth, manipulative drawl, had always had a way of planting doubts. He told us you were making bad decisions, Emily added, her eyes pleading. He said you might lose everything if we didn't step in. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. And you believed him? The man who left us, who didn't send a single birthday card. They flinched, and I saw the crack in their certainty. Jacob's voice was quieter now. He showed us emails. Mom. From you. Talking about investments. Risky ones. He said you were being reckless. Emails. My mind raced. I hadn't emailed Tom in years. Not since the divorce. Show me, I said, my voice hard. Emily hesitated, then pulled out her phone, scrolling before handing it to me. There they were, messages from my email address. Ones I'd never written. Talking about shady crypto schemes and stock tips. Forged. Perfectly forged. My hands shook as I scrolled, the realization hitting like a punch. Tom hadn't just reappeared. He'd orchestrated this. Poisoned my children against me. I didn't write these, I said, tossing the phone onto the coffee table. Your father's playing you. Again. Emily's face crumpled, but Jacob's eyes narrowed. Why would he lie? He asked. He doesn't gain anything from this. Doesn't he? I thought. But I didn't say it. Not yet. I needed proof. Something to unravel this web he'd spun. Where's the money? I asked instead. The trust you set up, where is it? They exchanged another glance, and my stomach twisted. It's with Dad, Emily admitted, her voice barely audible. He said he'd manage it for you. Of course he did. Tom, the charmer, the thief, back to take what little I had left. I stood, my mind racing. Get out, I said, my voice cold. Both of you. Now. Emily started to protest, but Jacob grabbed her arm. pulling her toward the door. "We'll fix this, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "We didn't know." I didn't answer. The door closed behind them, and I sank to the floor, my back against the couch. Tom. After all these years, he'd found a way to hurt me again, using the only thing I'd ever truly loved in me, children. But I wasn't the same woman he'd left. I'd fought for everything I had, and I'd fight now. I grabbed my laptop, my fingers flying as I logged into my email. The account had been hacked, just as I suspected. Someone Tom had been sending messages in my name for months. I changed the password, set up two-factor authentication, and started digging. Bank records, transaction logs, anything that could trace where my money had gone. Hours passed, the coffee cold in its pot, as I pieced together the trail. The trust account was linked to a shell company, one tied to an address in Nevada. Tom's old stomping grounds. I leaned back, my heart pounding. He thought he'd won, but he didn't know about the college funds. Those were my ace, my way to hit back. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the truth, for my children to see who their father really was. And I'd make sure they did. The next day was a blur of phone calls and fury. I contacted the bank, demanding a freeze on any further transactions from the trust account. The manager was apologetic but unhelpful without proof of fraud. My hands were tied. My children had been co-signers. A decision I'd made out of trust. Now a noose around my neck. I slammed the phone down, my breath ragged. The house felt like a cage, every corner mocking me with memories of better days. I needed to move, to act, to reclaim something of myself. I drove to the library, my old refuge, where the hum of computers and the smell of books calmed my racing heart. I settled at a public terminal, pulling up every record I could find on Tom. Divorce papers, old addresses, anything that might lead me to him. He'd always been slippery, a man who could charm his way out of anything. But I was relentless now. Hours later, I found it, a business filing for the shell company, listing Tom as a director. My blood ran cold. He hadn't just taken my money. He'd built a plan around it, using my children as pawns. I printed the document, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and triumph. This was my weapon, but it wasn't enough. I needed to confront him, to see his face when I exposed him. Back home, I called Emily and Jacob, leaving voicemails when they didn't answer. "We need to meet. Tonight. My place. Bring your father." I didn't expect them to comply, but I needed them to know I wasn't backing down. As evening fell, I sat at the kitchen table. The college fund documents spread out like a war plan. The $90,000 was safe, tucked away in my new account. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about justice, about making them see. The doorbell rang at 8, and my heart lurched. I opened the door to find only Emily, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands twisting nervously. "Jacob's with Dad," she said, stepping inside. "They're coming soon." I nodded, gesturing to the couch. She sat, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know. I thought we were helping you." Her voice broke, and I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close like I had when she was little. But I didn't. Not yet. "Why didn't you talk to me?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "Why him?" She shook her head, tears spilling. He was so convincing. Said he'd made mistakes, but wanted to make things right. He showed U.S. bank statements. Said you were in trouble. I clenched my jaw, holding back the urge to scream. Tom's lies had always been his greatest talent. Before I could respond, The doorbell rang again. Jacob and Tom stood there. Jacob's face stormy. Tom's infuriatingly calm. He hadn't changed much, same slick smile. Same polished shoes. "Ellen," he said, like we were old friends. I stepped aside, letting them in, my eyes never leaving his. The living room felt too small for all of us, the air crackling with tension. I didn't offer them seats. "You hacked my email," I said, tossing the printed business filing onto the coffee table. "You stole my money. And you used my kids to do it." Tom's smile didn't waver. "Ellen, you're upset. I get it. But this was for your own good." Jacob flinched, but Emily's eyes widened, flicking between us. I laughed, cold and sharp. "My own good. You're a thief, Tom. Always have been." I turned to my children. "He's lying to you. Again. And I can prove it." I grabbed my laptop, pulling up the email logs, the forged messages, the shell company records. Jacob's face paled as he read, but Tom just shrugged. "Misunderstandings," he said. "I was protecting your assets." I wanted to lunge at him, to tear that smug look off his face. Instead, I turned to Emily and Jacob. "I took your college funds because you took mine. But this isn't about money. It's about trust. And he's the one who broke it." Emily sobbed, and Jacob's shoulders slumped. For the first time, I saw doubt in their eyes, not in me, but in him. Tom's voice cut through the tension, smooth as ever. "Ellen, you're blowing this out of proportion. Let's talk this out. Like adults." His words were a match to my fuse, and I felt the explosion building. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "Adults don't steal from their family, Tom. Adults don't lie to their children." He raised his hands, palms up, like he was calming a wild animal. "I didn't steal anything. I set up a trust to keep your money safe. You've been under stress, Ellen. We all see it." Emily's head snapped up, her tears slowing. "Dad, stop," she said, her voice shaking but firm. Jacob's eyes were on me, searching, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. I held their gazes, my heart pounding. "I'm not the one who's lost it," I said. "Your father hacked my email, forged messages to make you think I was reckless. He's been planning this for months." I pointed to the documents on the table. "That company he's managing your trust through. It's his. He's siphoning my money for himself." Tom's smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. Jacob grabbed the papers, scanning them, his jaw tightening. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice low, directed at Tom. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Tom sighed, leaning back in his chair, the picture of ease. "You're both too young to understand financial planning. I was helping your mother, whether she sees it or not." I laughed, a sound that startled even me. "Helping me? Like you helped us when you left. When you didn't call for years." Emily flinched, her hands twisting in her lap. I hated that this hurt her, but they needed to hear it. "Your father's a con man. Always has been. And you let him use you." Jacob stood, his fists clenched. "Dad, tell us the truth. Now." Tom's eyes flicked to me, then back to Jacob, calculating. "The truth is, your mother's been reckless." I stepped in to save what I could. I slammed my hand on the table, the sound echoing. "Enough. I've got the bank records, Tom. The transfers, the accounts, all of it. You're not walking away from this." For the first time, he looked rattled, his charm cracking. Emily stood, moving to my side, her hand brushing mine. "Mom, we didn't know," she whispered. "We thought we were doing the right thing." My throat tightened, but I didn't reach for her. "Not yet. You should have trusted me," I said, my voice breaking. Jacob was still staring at Tom, his eyes hard. "You used us," he said, not a question. Tom stood, smoothing his jacket. "This is getting out of hand. I'll talk to you when you're calmer." He moved toward the door, but Jacob stepped in his path. "You're not leaving until we sort this out." The air was electric, every word a spark. I grabbed my phone, dialing the bank's fraud department. "I'm reporting this," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Every transaction, every lie. You're done, Tom." He froze, his hand on the doorknob, then turned, his face a mask of false regret. "Ellen, don't do this. Think of the kids." I laughed again, colder this time. "I am thinking of them. That's why I'm ending this." Emily's hand squeezed mine, tentative but there, and Jacob nodded, his eyes still on Tom. For the first time, I felt them with me, not against me. The bank representative answered, and I started talking, laying out the fraud, the forged emails, the shell company. Tom's face went pale, his charm useless now. As I spoke, I saw my children watching Minute, the fragile mother they'd been led to believe in, but the woman who'd fought for them, who was fighting now. The call ended, and the room was silent again. But it was different this time. It wasn't the silence of betrayal. It was the silence of truth, heavy but necessary. Tom opened the door, muttering something about lawyers, and left. My children stayed. The story continues with the aftermath of Tom's departure, leaving Ellen and her children, Emily and Jacob, to grapple with the reality of their fractured family. Ellen, fueled by a mix of righteous anger and protective instinct, has taken drastic measures by liquidating their college funds in retaliation for their betrayal. As the truth about Tom's manipulation unravels, the family must confront the pain of their actions and the long-buried wounds of their past. With the bank's fraud department now involved, Ellen feels a fleeting sense of victory, but it's overshadowed by the weight of her own actions. The college funds, once a symbol of her unwavering devotion, have become a weapon, and the consequences are sinking in. Emily's tears and Jacob's stunned silence mirror Ellen's own inner turmoil. Has she gone too far? The question lingers as she watches her children struggle with the realization that their father used them to orchestrate a devastating financial betrayal. The narrative delves into the psychological complexity of revenge and redemption. Ellen's decision to cash out the funds was a calculated act of justice, but it also risks further alienating her children, who were manipulated by their father's lies. The story explores whether trust can be rebuilt after such profound betrayal, and whether Ellen's fierce love for her children can overcome the pain they've all caused each other. As the family navigates this emotional minefield, they must decide how to move forward. Ellen's journey toward redemption involves not only holding Tom accountable, but also confronting her own role in the escalating conflict. The children, caught between loyalty to both parents, must come to terms with their mistakes and seek forgiveness. The story builds toward a resolution that balances justice with the possibility of healing, emphasizing the enduring strength of family loyalty despite its imperfections. Each part of the story is crafted to evoke a visceral emotional response, blending the thrill of revenge with the ache of regret and the hope of reconciliation. The linear structure ensures a relentless progression toward a climax that forces each character to face their choices, ultimately revealing the transformative power of truth and accountability. Through Ellen's eyes, we witness a mother's unbreakable resolve, a family's unraveling, and the painstaking path to redemption. leaving a lasting impression of human resilience and the complexities of love. The police arrived the next morning, their knock heavy and official. I opened the door, my heart a drumbeat in my chest, and let them in. Emily and Jacob sat on the couch, their faces pale, their hands clasped together like they were anchoring each other. I called the authorities after Tom left, armed with the bank records and email logs, determined to see this through. The lead officer, a woman with sharp eyes and a clipboard, listened as I laid out the evidence: Tom's forged emails, the shell company, the stolen $87, 432, 19. She nodded, taking notes, her expression unreadable. Jacob spoke up, his voice rough. "We didn't know, Mom. We thought we were helping you." The officer glanced at him, then back at me, waiting for my response. I wanted to believe him, but the hurt was still raw, a bruise that throbbed with every word. They were manipulated, I told her, my voice steady despite the ache. By their father. He's done this before. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. The officer asked for the documents, and I handed them over, feeling the weight of each page. They left, promising to follow up, and the house fell silent again. I looked at my children, their faces mirrors of guilt and regret. "What happens now?" Emily whispered. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. The college funds were still gone, my savings still lost, and Tom was out there, likely plotting his next move. But sitting there, watching them, I felt something shift. They weren't my enemies. They were my kids, caught in a web I hadn't seen coming. I sat beside them, my hands folded in my lap. "We fix this," I said finally. "Together." Jacob's shoulders relaxed slightly, and Emily reached for my hand, her grip tight. "We'll pay you back, Mom," she said. "Every cent." I shook my head. "It's not about the money. It's about us." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. The next week was a whirlwind of legal meetings and bank audits. Tom was arrested in Nevada, his charm no match for the paper trail I'd uncovered. The trust account was frozen, and the bank promised restitution, though it would take time. I didn't care about the money anymore. I cared about the truth. One evening, Emily and Jacob came over with takeout, a tentative peace offering. We ate in the kitchen, the silence softer now, filled with small steps toward healing. Jacob mentioned a job he'd applied for. Emily talked about her art. I listened, my heart thawing with every word. After they left, I sat at the table, the bank statement still there, a reminder of the war we'd fought. I'd cashed out their funds in a moment of fury, but I hadn't spent a dime. The money was still in my account, waiting. I opened my laptop, transferred it back, and sent them each a screenshot. "Your futures are yours," I texted. "Let's start over." Their replies came instantly. Emily's a tearful "thank you, Mom." Jacob's a simple "I love you." I closed the laptop, my eyes stinging. The road ahead was long, but we were walking it together. The swing set in the backyard creaked in the wind, a ghost of the past. But the future, that was ours to rebuild.